Good morning, church family. Neil, thank you for being diligent and leading us this month in great song services, and that last song, All to Us, it's one of those that just resonates. The more that you think about it, the more that you dwell on it, you're like, that is exactly what Jesus needs to be, is everything. He's all to us. And we're through a season where a lot of focus, and well, maybe we're still in the midst of the season, where there's a lot of focus on the birth of Jesus and the importance of Jesus coming to this earth. And so with that in mind, did y'all have a good Christmas? Was it all right among the Western Heights family? That's great. We had a lovely time. I got to spend some time just with my immediate family, spend some time with my extended family, and then we're having more time with Katie's extended family. And it's just one of those seasons where you get to do that, right? And it's delightful, and it's good, and it's wonderful, and it's chaos, because sometimes families are crazy. And sometimes I'm the one that brings the crazy into the family, and my siblings would probably agree with that. But it is part of the joy of the season. But it's also part of the weariness of the season, right? Between parties and kids being home for school saying, I'm bored. Anyone else feeling that one? Yeah, so yeah, all of this, and then the different shopping that had to be done before Christmas, and now returning things that were given, and you're like, thanks. You know, you're trying to mask it, and you're like, this is awesome. Where'd you get it? Because I want to go get something else, point me in the right direction. Whatever may be going on, it's just busy time of year. And have you stopped and taken a moment and just thought, man, does it feel like the pace that you've been doing the past little bit is just not sustainable? You're like, I can't do this forever. I can only do this for a short amount of time. And so much time is spent with all these things, and we tell ourselves, well, it's just a season. As soon as school starts, or as soon as the new year approaches, or as soon as this, that, or the other. And the thing is, it would be true that it would be a season if it actually changed, but how long have you been in an unsustainable pace of life? How long have you just been weary? Because if it's been more than just a few months, few weeks, it's longer than a season. It's becoming a lifestyle for you. The truth that I've learned through my years in ministry is Christians don't do a good job of taking care of our souls. We talk about it. We may pay homage to it in our words, and we may even have some practices that we set up every once in a while or for seasons, but we don't do a good job of taking care of our souls. That's been the impetus of this whole series, is it well with your soul? A time to check in, because I think we are tired of our souls being tired. A few years back, we all had a wake-up call to the busyness of life that we were pursuing. We may not have even realized how busy we were. But when the world shut down, so it seemed during the COVID protocols, all of us had to figure out a new normal. And I never want to go back. Don't get me wrong. But there are some things that I miss about 2020. The pace of life was a little bit different. I got to spend some more time with my family. I got to spend some more time in nature. I picked up some different hobbies. Things that were on the back burner, I was able to move forward because I just wasn't as busy as I used to be. Now, I do not want to go back, but maybe we need to take some time and slow down, just without a pandemic this time. Maybe we don't need the wake-up call that was given to us in order to continue in a practice that was actually healthy, not just physically, but healthy for our souls. We have normalized a way of doing life in the outer world that is proving to be toxic in the inner world. We have normalized that kind of life. And one way that you can do more to bless your soul is to do less. One way that you can do more to bless your soul is to actually do less. Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. I think this makes a great song, but I'm going to be honest, it makes a very hard teaching. At least it makes a hard teaching for Mitch Wiggins. I have a hard time being still. I remember growing up, and even still today, like I will have like a foot moving, a knee moving, something else. This would drive my brother bonkers. When we would ride in the car together, we would be opposite each other, and like many brothers, we had the line that you did not cross in between in the seat. You did not cross. That was given for protection of everyone in the car. You don't cross this line, and so I wouldn't. But my brother would still get upset with me because I would still be moving. And I remember a conversation that that between he and my mom of like, he's doing it on purpose. It's like, no, like, Tyler, he just can't stop moving. Like, do you think that he does this? He does this whenever you're not around. Why would he do that? And my brother's response was great. He says, he's practicing. That may have been true. I'm not actually sure now. But the thing is, for a guy like me, be still is one of the hardest commands. It's one of the hardest things. And it's one of those things that I hear quite often from the Lord to me. Chill out, Mitch. Go sit down. Take a nap. Some of the things we've talked about in this series. Those are hard lessons for a guy that wants to do and do and do. Maybe you're like me. And maybe you and I both need to listen to the creator of our souls, the creator of our whole being that says, look, I know how I created you. I know I formed you. I made you. And you may think that what you need is to keep going and going and going, but here's what God knows about you and about me. You need to be still. You need to create that margin in your life to be still. One of the greatest writers and thinkers on the topic of spiritual disciplines, in my opinion, is a man named Dallas Willard. Some of you may have heard of him. Some of you may have read his books about spiritual disciplines. He's phenomenal with that. I encourage you, if you have not picked up any book by Dallas Willard, he's got some great ones. He mentored a popular preacher by the name of John Ortberg. And John relates a story of a conversation that he and Dallas had one day. John comes to Dallas and he says, Dallas, I really do want to be more like Jesus, but I keep just getting frustrated that I'm not looking more and more like Jesus. I'm not doing all the right things. So, I feel like I'm trying to do everything and I can't figure it all out. So John looks at Dallas and says, can you give me just one thing I can concentrate on to begin doing right now that I can be more like Jesus? And Dallas said this: you must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. That's probably one of the most powerful messages that most of you are going to ignore this week. Am I right? You must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. We are in a culture that hurries. There's so much to do. There's so many things that are on my to-do list. Well, maybe the thing is I need to change my to-do list. I'm assuming that a good chunk of the people in this room have read through at least one of the gospel accounts, if not all four of the gospel accounts, where you really get to intimately know the life of Jesus. And I just want you to bring that to your mind's eye for a moment. Think about the life of Jesus. And can you think of one instance where Jesus was in a hurry? Where he's like, hurry up, guys. We got to make it to the next town. At any point, he's like, hurry up. We better cross this sea before a storm hits because I know what's about to happen. Hurry up. We need to hurry up. Yeah, I can't think of a single instance in the life of Jesus whenever he was in a hurry. Jesus lived an unrushed life, both on the outside and on the inside. You see, the thing that I also know to be true is a lot of people can look unrushed on the outside, but inside they're full of turmoil that just keeps on building and boiling and spewing over. And they're rushed on the inside. Jesus lived an unrushed life. And we need to model Jesus if we want to live to the fullness that our soul desires within us. A soul cannot heal until it gets still. I believe this wholeheartedly. A soul cannot heal until it gets still. So if you're feeling some restlessness in your soul, if you feel some brokenness, if you feel like there's questions that have been deep within your soul that you haven't gotten answers to, if you feel that there's a disconnect between you and your Maker, one of the best advice that I could give you is to sit in it, to be still. Because when you sit in it, that allows the Maker of your soul to get to work. So how do we do that? How do we get still? I've got a couple suggestions for us this morning to care for your soul. The first is this: slow down the exhausting pace of your life. The only solution for an unsustainable pace of life is to change the pace of life to a sustainable one. I know that's really deep. I'm going to say it for you again because you may have missed it. The only solution for an unsustainable pace of life is to change it to a sustainable pace. That's it. Just change your life. Sounds really easy, doesn't it? Like, what am I going to cut? What am I going to change? What am I going to move? See, we live in a culture that says if you're not busy, you're not worth much. We live in a culture that looks down upon anyone that even looks like they're lazy. Don't get me wrong. If you don't believe me on this, how many jokes does your family have, or do you have in your mind when you're driving down the road in a construction zone and you see the workers, and you assume that they're workers because they're wearing like the vest and the gear, okay? And you laugh that there is someone that is not working, or there is 6 guys there and only one of them seems to be doing any work. And you're like, bunch of lazy supervisors. That's what we always say, right? We have those jokes because we're like, they're not doing anything. Yet they actually might be doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Maybe they're taking shifts and rotating so that people don't get worn out, that only one person can dig in this hole at this moment. And so I'm going to dig for 10 minutes, and then the next person's going to dig for 10 minutes, and you're going to get a break. And I'm driving by in 3 seconds, and I make a judgment call because that person looks lazy. Isn't that how we do a lot of life? We look at the lazy person that we have deemed as lazy, and we say they're not worth it. They're not worth much. In our society, slow is not a good thing. Go drive on 75, you'll find this out. Correction, go drive on 75 through Sherman in the left-hand lane at the specific speed limit, which, if you don't know, is 60. You know what'll happen, right? You drive in the right lane at that speed limit, you also know what happens. And the sobering reality, truth of it, it doesn't matter how many wrecks happen, people are not going to change their life. Doesn't matter how many lives are lost, people are not going to change their hurried pace of life. Because slow is a cuss word in our society. We don't have time for slow because we just got so many things to do. I want to give you a comparison. It's not a perfect comparison, but I want you to consider that we are supposed to be good stewards of our time and our money. So here's a comparison for you. If I were to give you financial advice based upon how you spend time, most of you would be very destitute financially, right? Because what you do financially, if you want to be financially good and secure, if you want to steward your money well, you use some, obviously, you got to live, but you start by saving some, And I'm going to also say you also give some, and then you use maybe the rest. Okay? That is just saving money is good financial advice, however you might want to consider it. That is good advice. Now, here's the question. How many of you are even considering your time in any form of same way? That you can't save time. Like, I can't hold these 10 minutes and roll them over for tomorrow because tomorrow's a busy day. I need an extra 10 minutes tomorrow. You can't do that. But what does it look like to create margin in your life where you're saying, look, I am not going to schedule myself to everything. I'm going to create margin. I'm saving some time for God to do something in this moment that I'm going to specifically be paying attention to. I'm saving some time for me to interact with the Lord only. I'm holding on to some moments of life that aren't going to dictate everything about my life. Corrie ten Boom, some of you may recognize who that is, once wrote, "If the devil can't make you sin, he will make you busy." That's true. Devil doesn't have to make you sin. He just has to make you distracted. He just makes to make you busy. And some of you this morning have all of a sudden felt your toes step on, right? You're all of a sudden going, oh, we crossed the line preaching to Medlin because I'm pretty busy. Preacher, you saying that's coming from the devil? No, I'm saying Corrie ten Boom said it's coming from the devil. But maybe it is. The devil can't make you sin. Maybe he's just content making you busy. The price that we pay for a full schedule, I believe, is an empty soul. Because most of the things that you do in your scheduled life are not things that fill your soul. They are things that you are pouring out of your soul. And so the price that we pay for a full schedule is an empty soul. This may be the reason that vacation doesn't really satisfy your soul anymore. Maybe it used to, that you're like, a chance to get away, and you can fill your soul, and then you can get back to work and do the things. But the thing is, whenever we are an empty soul, vacation is not the problem. It's not our time off that's a problem. It's our time on. That if we're not taking care of our soul throughout every day, then whenever it comes to time off, whenever we are wanting to replenish, we can't. Because we're so destitute, we don't even know how to fill our soul anymore. And the hard truth is, the reason we struggle with exhaustion is that we just don't trust this, that God is sovereign. We don't trust that God's in charge of it all. In one of Jesus' most famous sermons in Matthew 6, he says this, "So don't worry about these things, saying, what will we eat, what will we drink, and what will we wear? These things dominate the thoughts of unbelievers. But your heavenly Father already knows all your needs. Seek the kingdom of God above all else and live righteously, and He will give you everything you need." Notice the hurry in all these questions. Oh, what are we gonna eat? What are we gonna drink? What are we gonna wear? Jesus says that's the kind of questions, that's the kind of life that dominates unbelievers. But followers of God can be still and know that God really has us covered. That God is taking care of life. God is in control. In Psalm 62, the psalmist says this, "Yes, my soul, find rest in God. My hope comes from Him. Truly, He is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I will not be shaken. My salvation and my honor depend on God. He is a mighty rock, my refuge. Trust in Him at all times, you people. Pour out your hearts to Him, for God is our refuge." Do you hear what the psalmist is saying? Like the reason that you can take a break, the reason that you can have a sabbatical, the reason that you can be still is because God is good. That God takes care of His people. He takes good care of us. So the solution to an overbusy life is not more time, because you're not going to get more time. The solution is to slow down. Be still. Be still for a little bit. Schedule some time to have some time to be still. Theologian, modern theologian by the name of N.T. Wright, I like how he said this. He said, "It is only when we slow down our lives that we can catch up to God." Isn't that a fascinating concept? A lot of times we think, if I got to play some catch up, that means I got to work harder, I got to stress more, I got to achieve more, I've got to run faster, I got to move quicker through life, I've got to catch up because God is on the move. And a lot of times we apply this same kind of mentality to God, that God is on the move and I want to catch up to where He's at, so I got to run and chase after God. It's in some songs even about chasing after God, and I just like this mentality. It is only when we slow down our lives, that's when we catch up to God. It's not saying that God is lollygagging behind us. It's saying that God is in the stillness. And God refills and refuels our lives in the stillness. So soul care requires some pruning of our schedules. I'm convinced of this. We need to slow down for the glory of God. I challenge you to try it. Look at your schedule for this week, next week, this month, whatever's coming up. Look at your schedule and just see, what can I slow down? Where can I create some margin? Where can I breathe just a little bit more? Now, I want to caution you, don't fall in temptation of only cutting things because you think, I can cut that, it won't hurt much. Cut the things that aren't drawing you closer to God. Cut the things that aren't furthering His kingdom. Cut the things that God doesn't smile upon. So we need to prune our schedules. We need to figure out something within our life to be able to be still more. Another tangible thing for us to consider to do is turn down the noise that is wearing out our souls. The Gospels reveal that spending intentional time in silence and solitude is very important to Jesus. Over and over, you see that Jesus is having this soul care, and He's treating it very seriously. Luke 5:16 is just one instance of this. He says, Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. He's creating margin, He's creating a place, but whenever He is going to lonely places, we can insert He's going to quiet places, because whenever it's lonely, that means there's less people around, and when there's less people around, it is more quiet. I'm reminded of this fact whenever we went down to my sister. She lives Arlington, Mansfield, that line there. And so we went down to the city. Now, I grew up in the country, and I still am very much a fan of the country, even though I live in a suburban community now. Mine is fairly quiet. But we had a hotel that ended up being right off the highway. And when we got in there at night, we were like, dear me. It was so loud. All the people driving on the highway and all the noise throughout you've been in a hotel before probably. There's just people milling about all the time, so it seems. And it's hard for us to get quiet enough like we are in our home. And so it's good to be able to retreat to a quiet place. The Prince of Peace sought peace and quiet with God. How much more do you think you need it than Jesus? Jesus not only practiced this, He also promoted it among His disciples. After a mission trip that they were on, it says this in Mark 6:31, "Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." Silence creates space where we can assess how our soul is doing, which may be why you don't like the quiet. Because in the quiet, the wellness of your soul speaks. And if you find yourself kind of running away from quiet, if you find yourself whenever it's a little too quiet, you're like, I've got to turn some music on. I've got to have something going, because you just can't deal with the quiet. That might be the quiet screaming for your soul. of saying, hey, look, I am not doing well. We need some space. Our lives can easily be filled with so much noise. That's why we need to intentionally make time for silence. So specifically, I'm going to give you more of a challenge. This means we have to have a better discipline with the technology we have. We have to have a better discipline. Did you know that 100 years ago, people didn't struggle with the same kind of struggles that we have now? I mean, that makes sense, but especially when it comes to auditory and visual struggles that we have now. Like, they didn't have too many of the modern conveniences that we have. They didn't have a whole computer in their pockets that can take them anywhere in the world if they want, that can fill every ounce of silence in their lives, give every form of entertainment. We are addicted to the noise, both visually and auditory. We are addicted to the noise that our devices give us. It is proven that we get a hit. We get a delight. We get the same kind of feel that a drug addict gets whenever they take a hit of whatever their drug is. When we touch our phones, there is a chemical reaction within us that is the same thing. And we are addicted to it. Studies have shown that our obsession with screens has increased levels of anxiety, of depression, of obesity, of sleep disorders. That's just to name a few. That studies have shown that our obsession with technology has affected our lives and not for the better. There are good things about technology, don't get me wrong, but if you're going to be still and know who God is, I'm just going to say it out flat. You got to put your phone down. If you're going to be still and know who God is, you got to turn off the TV. You got to set your phone down. You got to get away from some of the devices that are dominating your world. So I want to dare you to a challenge, because the irony is most of you are like, oh yeah, I agree with that. You agree that technology is a problem. You see your kids on it. You see your parents on the phone just too much, and you lament this idea that people don't know how to talk face-to-face anymore. All they know to do is talk to a device, and you lament it. But here's the thing. The irony is everyone knows it's a problem, but very few are actually changing anything. We are just gathering our laments together and wallowing in this pool, this cesspool of lament, going, oh, woe is us, poor technology, it's taken over the world. Only if we let it. It'll only take over our lives if we let it. So we have to intentionally make some changes. And so here's a challenge for you, and you're not going to like me for this challenge. I'm going to make it small, but it's not going to be fun for a lot of us included. My girls have every right to hold me on this. Here's the challenge. For lunch today, I don't know what you're doing for lunch. I know that as culture, a lot of people, it will go with the family, go with others from the church. That's great. Here's what I want to challenge you for lunch. I'll give you one time to touch your phone. Once, that's it. From the time this sermon ends until the time this sermon is done, you may have a text you need to respond to. You may have a fantasy football team you need to check real fast before the game starts. I get it. Okay, you get one. You may need to know the directions to the restaurant you're going. Great, you got one touch. After that one, hold each other accountable. Do not touch your phone again, or don't cheat. I got a smartwatch. I'm not touching my phone. Don't cheat. Know that I'm not looking for loopholes here. We're looking at creating margin. Don't touch it again, not until you're done with food, but until everyone at your table is done with food. Find something else to do for lunch rather than be on your phone, okay? And some of you are like, well, that's easy. We do that all the time. Praise God that you are more righteous and holy than the rest of us. Keep it up. We need your beacons of light to help remind us, those who are unfaithful in this, all right? We need that, but maybe extend it. Try it. Make it a habit. Extend it further in your life. I'm not saying get rid of all technology, because there are some wonderful, blessed things of the world that we live in and the technology that comes from it. But the challenge is just a way to stop and be still for a moment, to be still in the moment and see what God does when He shows up in the silence. Be still and know that I am God. If you want to know God, you got to be still. If you want your soul to be nourished by God, you've got to be still. So let's get still and dwell in the presence of God. And this morning, if you need anything, whether it's prayers or need to give your life to Christ through the waters of baptism, whatever it may be that you need, now's the opportune time. Would you come forward as we stand and sing together?